Before I dive straight into things here, I should mention that while this video is going to be pretty darn long and thorough, it's still more or less a sequel to my previous two booster course pass analysis and prediction videos. So going into discussion today, I would hope that you already have a good understanding of all this stuff and why I seem to make a few assumptions about the contents of the final wave. Basically, if you aren't already aware of why Wave 6 is widely expected to contain 4 tour courses, 2 Wii courses, 1 Super Nintendo course, and 1 GameCube course, you should stop it right here and watch those other 2 videos first, then come back to me. Links can be found in the description. And before I begin to ramble and forget, I'd also like to ask you to post your Wave 6 predictions in a comment below so that I can record them and see what the community consensus is. After Wave 6 is revealed, I might make a video where I go over these collected predictions to see just how right or wrong the community was. Anyway, ahoy there lads and lassies, once again. I didn't think I'd be talking about Wave 6 again so soon, but as the saying goes, the Nintendo speculation machine waits for no man. Well, I'm paraphrasing a little, but you get the idea. Something you have to understand about me is that even when I'm trying to suppress a topic like this, my over-analytical, hyperactive brain is always working around the clock on new theories and hypothetical scenarios for everything in life, not just Mario Kart. And as much as I'd like to get away from it and talk about something less stressful, I mean, there isn't even a Mario Kart in my top 10 favorite games, I feel a sort of obligation to everyone who subscribed to me because of my other booster course pass analysis and prediction videos to let them know when my perspective has changed. Oh, but no need to feel sorry for me. I have absolutely zero incentive to be doing this outside of sheer passion for the community and the desire to get some discussions going. I've made so many amazing friends over this journey, and maybe I can squeeze in a few more by the time this all wraps up in a few weeks. Now wait a minute, you may be asking, did he just say a few weeks? Well, even if you didn't ask that, yes, I can confirm that I just said a few weeks. That's my way of cleverly segueing into the first thing I have to talk about today, the Wave 6 release date. While I didn't take a bold stance in my last video, up until recently I felt pretty strongly that the recent Nintendo Direct's winter or holiday release window, coupled with the sizzle reel at the end of the Direct that placed it after Super Mario RPG in chronological order, meant that we would be waiting until the tail end of November at the absolute earliest. However, lately I've been convinced of a more optimistic outlook, and this is mainly by way of my good pal Nocturne201. Nocturne is very persuasive and has a creepily solid track record of predicting stuff against the community consensus. For instance, predicting that Wave 4 would have a circuit course, or that Vancouver Velocity would be pushed ahead to Wave 5, or the approximate dates of the June and September Directs in the face of doubt that they'd happen at all. Heck, he was one of the people that sold me on Daisy Circuit being the frontrunner for the Wave 6 Mystery Retro slot. Recently, Noct has been making a name for himself in the communities where we hang out as the fellow who's very firmly predicting that Wave 6 will be releasing in the first 9 days of November, most likely on the 8th, with the 17th being the hard cutoff date. And as Newton's fourth law of motion states, all booster course pass predictions tend towards nocturnes. He makes an excellent case for this date, pointing out that November has been demonstrated to be a part of Nintendo's holiday or winter zone with things like Sonic Frontiers and The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom Zelda and Ganondorf amiibo that were also announced for holiday/winter. In addition to the fact that it's far from unprecedented for a wave to come out near a semi-major game release, while the 8th still puts it at a couple weeks after Super Mario Bros. Wonder. Additional points include the fact that Mario Kart Tour's Animal Tour featuring DK Mountain and Dino Jungle should rerun starting on the 15th of November, which in spite of being a rerun could serve as a sort of tie-in tour like every previous wave has had, and the fact that an early December release would put this as the longest wait between waves ever. Yes, longer than the Wave 2 wait, when the development time has only been trending towards shorter waits this year. Actually, a release on November 8th would make 119 days since Wave 5's release on July 12th, which is right at the average of all 4 of the previous wait times. But wait, there's even more! You may or may not be familiar with the Nintendo Switch News Spotlight articles. Essentially, sometime after the release of each BCP wave, the Nintendo Switch's news app occasionally features what's called DLC Spotlights, which are articles that each highlight specific courses from the latest wave. Europe and Japan get 1 course highlighted per article, for 8 articles per wave, while North America gets 2 courses per article, so 4 articles per wave. The interesting thing to note here is that while Europe can be unpredictable, Japanese and American articles aren't published at random. Once they get started, Japan always does them once per week, and America can vary, but has very rarely done them more than 2 weeks apart outside of Wave 2, with the average time between articles actually trending towards once per week with Waves 3 and 4. Why does this matter? Well, here's the kicker. American Spotlight articles for a given wave always end not long before, or on the day of, the next wave's full reveal trailer. Now, the Japanese articles for Waves 3 and 4 ended the week before the respective trailers for Waves 4 and 5 went live. But this time Wave 5's final Japanese Spotlight was published on October 6th, so if that pattern was repeated then we would have had Wave 6 getting revealed on October 12th. On the other hand, the American Spotlights began on October 4th, and, wouldn't you know it, the second one came out exactly 1 week later, on the 11th. Looking back on previous American Spotlights, Wave 3 was revealed 10 days after Wave 2's last article, Wave 4 was revealed 1 day after Wave 3's last article, and Wave 5 was revealed on the day of Wave 4's last article. So I said all that to say this. If the trend of these articles releasing about once per week continues, then we're looking at the Wave 5 Spotlights wrapping up in the last week of October. I think we've established that these articles have been intentionally timed to coincide like this. So in the face of all this evidence, I'm at the point where it sounds really silly to me that they would reveal Wave 6 any later than the first week of November. As such, it is with great confidence that I declare my belief and agreement with Nocturne that Wave 6 is releasing in the first 10 days of November, with a reveal on November 2nd or October 26th, since it's always a Thursday outside of American Thanksgiving week. Wow, that was a lot to go over, but I hope it was persuasive. I was pretty darn happy to be convinced that the BCP will be wrapping up a month sooner than I was anticipating, and maybe you will be too. We've still got plenty of time left today though, so let's move on to the second thing I wanted to give my thoughts on, the Mystery Course Debate Part 2. So as it turns out, I wasn't the only one who was confused about and suspicious of the fact that Daisy Circuit was selected for the Wave 6 teaser. Far from it, in fact. I can't spend 30 seconds scrolling through YouTube or Discord without seeing someone talk about how revealing what we thought was their last surprise might indicate that Nintendo is hiding something, or has one last curveball for the final wave. In particular, I enjoyed this video by HD Rookie talking about how Super Nintendo Bowser Castle 3 may not be as much of a lock as we've been treating it. However, I do not agree with his proposal that Game Boy Advance Bowser's Castle 4 could be taking its place. BC4 may have received a highly unusual overhaul in Tour, and it may have gone to the same render date class as other Tour courses made for the BCP like Wii Rainbow Road, DS Mario Circuit, and the aforementioned BC3. But the problem lies in the overhaul itself. It is very painfully, overly obviously not designed to work well in Mario Kart 8. And I don't even mean in terms of just the layout, but the length as well. The Tour devs made the very intentional and conscious design choice of making it a perfectly lengthened 2-section course. This isn't a Wii Rainbow Road situation where they ported a model and it was a little too long to work as a 2-lapper. Each section of Bowser's Castle 4 is pretty close to the length of a lap in an average course in Tour. But in a console Mario Kart game, how would that translate? Do you keep it absurdly short as 2 or 3 sections? Do you make it an awkward 2-lapper? Cause 3 laps around the whole thing is absolutely positively out of the question. If the BCP was given even an inkling of thought in the creation of this remake, I can guarantee you that the length would have been much different. So even if I ignore the fact that BC3's remake was extremely obviously built with 8 Deluxe in mind, I'm completely counting out BC4 for Wave 6. And without that, what's even left that could replace BC3? 3DS Bowser's Castle? A different Game Boy Advance BC? Give me a break. The only course that I would give a non-negligible shot of taking its spot would be DS Airship Fortress, and even though it's very highly demanded, I definitely think the devs have sense enough to not make that call, especially if they themselves commissioned the Bowser Castle 3 remake like we're pretty sure they did. Having said all that, while the video didn't change my 99% stance on Super Nintendo BC3, it did get me thinking about our other not completely certain retro course, the GameCube Jungle. I mean, the Booster Course Pass has been pretty mean to Double Dash fans, with at least one of their slots being outright swapped out, and it should be pretty obvious that none of the GameCube courses in Tour were connected to the BCP's development in any way, with references to DK Mountain first appearing in the files in late 2020. For a little while there, I was genuinely entertaining the possibility that Wave 6 wouldn't have a GameCube course at all, but then I took another look at Mario Kart Tour's course lineup, and it became apparent pretty quickly that there aren't any viable replacement options for this one either. I mean, they're not going to put another Super Nintendo course in the final wave. They're not going to do another circuit. They're not going to do another Bowser's Castle, with Airship Fortress being included in that for reasons I shouldn't have to explain. There would be very little justification for swapping in Cheep Cheep Island, Lakeside Park, Yoshi Desert, or Luigi's Mansion. Most of the remaining DS and 3DS courses are either too simple or have a lot of thematic overlap with another course. Wave 6 could do with a nighttime snow course like Frappe Snowland or Rosalina's Ice World, but in terms of fan favorite status, there's not much of a competition here. And 2 Wii courses is already slightly iffy, so I don't think Dry Dry Ruins has any hope left. The only course that survives all of this is 3DS Shy Guy Bazaar, but sadly I just don't think that feels like a course you'd swap out a GameCube Jungle for. So, you know what I think? I think the curveball in Wave 6 is that the community is dramatically overthinking this and things are going to pan out exactly as we expect them to. And to explain the teaser, when you think about it, if it wasn't for the data mines that we weren't supposed to see, then Yoshi's Island and Squeaky Clean Sprint, 2 literally brand new courses, would have been the biggest surprises of their respective waves, yet they were teased first. Likewise, Daisy Circuit would have been the biggest surprise of Wave 6 even without the data mines, so in that respect it was only following suit. And on top of that, it also makes a lot of sense from the perspective of not really being something you want to save for later. Why not get the circuit course out of the way first? So yeah, since I'm not going to spend any time touching on the non-existent possibility of Wii Rainbow Road or any of the 4 tour courses getting replaced, those are my complete thoughts on the new mystery course debate. And as for the related secret cup theory, I just can't really think of anything to say. I mean, it sure is a theory, with absolutely no evidence or precedent to support it. Copium isn't an illegal drug, I'm not going to stop you. But back to my predictions. For the third part of this video, I'd like to go back over my anticipated course order and give my complete, definitive thoughts on each slot one last time. And you'd better buckle yourself in, cause these are gonna get a little ranty. First, we have Acorn-1 and Spiny-1, which I still believe are respectively Tour Madrid Drive and Rome Avanti. This debate has been getting nothing but hotter over the last few weeks. It's become an epic tale of friendship, forbidden love, fickleness, betrayal, villainy, tomfoolery, lunacy, and countless other Hollywood tropes. But if there's only one person left in the whole world who still believes in hashtag Save Rome for Spiny down to the minute before Wave 6's reveal, it's gonna be me. However, I must admit, my stance on the matter has loosened a little bit lately. You see, my main issue with the idea of Madrid and Spiny lies not with how well it itself suits the cup, for I do think it's an excellent fit. Rather, it's just how egregiously bad the idea of Rome opening a wave sounds to me. While it isn't the most varied thing in the world, its layout is so complex and its atmosphere is so dramatic and uninviting that I'm having a very hard time trying to imagine a world where it sits at the start of a large set of tracks without being horribly butchered in some way. But there is another way to look at it. It is possible that wave divisions don't really matter all that much. I mean, once Wave 6 comes out, there will be plenty of people who just pick up the game, play through Acorn Cup, play through Spiny Cup, and then put it back down. But a month or two after that, a year, 5 years, Rome wouldn't be any more or any less the start of something than, say, Tokyo or Los Angeles. All 12 of the DLC Cups are purchased at the same time after all. So when I think about it like that, I do feel somewhat more at ease with the idea of Rome Avanti being an Acorn. But I still seriously doubt it. Berlin Bioways, which went in the Moon Cup, may have been the more upbeat and varied of Wave 3's city pair, but it also happens to be one of the most complex and difficult cities. Something I can't say about Madrid Drive, but is definitely true about Rome Avanti. Also, spoilers for the rest of the wave, but I'm very confident that Piranha Plant Cove will be in Acorn and Pipeline will be in Spiny, and I don't know about putting both nighttime tour courses in one cup and both daytime courses in the other. I also don't think Madrid has too much aesthetic overlap with the Daisy Circuit, or at least not more than Rome does, and I'm not considering the simplicity of the routing, since Athens Dash was a wave opener with a second starting line. But at the end of the day, you know what? If both courses make the transition to Mario Kart 8 Deluxe intact, I won't care at all about which goes where. Literally either one would make Spiny Cup the best cup in the game, and while I firmly believe that Nintendo cares about a very natural course order, I think they've hit the nail on the head with all 22 of the other cups in the game, a good course is a good course. As I mentioned a bit ago, the only thing about Rome and Acorn that I genuinely don't like is the thought of it being changed too much to suit it. I dare Nintendo to prove me wrong. I dare them to start a wave with Rome with good routing and the atmosphere and enemies intact. Oh, and I'm still going to hold myself to the Baby Park bet. 96 times straight on 200cc if I'm wrong. I'll have one or two friends to help me out, should be a fun video. Anyway, I'm completely done with the city placement debate. We'll see what happens in just a few weeks. No hard feelings no matter what goes where, it's all in good fun. Next up are Acorn-2 and 3, which I maintain are Daisy Circuit and the GameCube Jungle. This is because Wii Rainbow Road is already in Spiny, and they're not going to put two Wii courses in one cup. Now, I don't think both Tour non-cities can go in the same cup either, which means that each cup has to have exactly two retros, and I very highly doubt that the two simplest courses of the wave, DC and BC3, would go together, not to mention their oddly similar aesthetics, with both featuring an iconic piercing sunset skybox and gray roads. Back to DC and the jungle, which comes first? Honestly, I think it just depends on which jungle we get. I'm still pretty split on the matter, although I am leaning towards DK Mountain. If you have to associate me with a single prediction, I would say Daisy Circuit is Acorn-2 and DK Mountain is Acorn-3. That's pretty intuitive, right? The relatively simple circuit, then the dramatic, massive fan-favorite mountain course. However, I do have a personal remark to add here regarding said fan-favorite mountain. The other day I was replaying through the past like I do every now and then, and I remember getting to DK's snowboard cross and suddenly thinking to myself, man, DK Mountain in Wave 6 would really stink. And the more I think about it, the more frustrated I become about the very likely outcome where the second half of the pass winds up with two courses with nearly identical concepts. You can argue they were both in Wii, and Mountain is too iconic to exclude all you want, but having played them both in Tour, I don't think there's really any argument to be had on how gosh darn similar the two are. A cannon shot up the side of a mountain, and a winding path down with bumps and ramps, half pipes on the sides, and a couple of gaps to cut. The only differences are that DK Mountain is substantially slower and more barren, and would probably translate really clumsily to 8. Now don't get me wrong, I thoroughly enjoy the course in Double Dash and Tour, I really do. But after watching footage of a few different Mario Kart 8 custom tracks using the Tour model upscaled for 12 players, holy cow. It looks really clunky and slow and not a lot of fun. Obviously the devs can modify it, but based on their track record, I'm not confident that they'd do enough. I'm sorry, but I really don't want it in Wave 6 now. I genuinely prefer to get no GameCube course at all over getting DKM. If it's anything like what I'm bracing for, it's seriously going to drag down the wave for me. This reminds me of back in the days of the Mushroom Briddy debate, when I dreaded the idea of getting Bridge for the same reason. After watching CT footage, I could only see it being a clumsy transition with those massive straightaways and tight sidewalks. Miraculously, the course never came, and I'm hoping against hope that that happens again. Heck, maybe that's the very reason we didn't get Bridge. Maybe the devs ported the model and went, wow, this stinks. Maybe the same happens with DK Mountain, but I fear that it may not. Oh, but once again, please screw me wrong, Nintendo. Remake DK Mountain and make it play well, and do something to set it apart from Snowboard Cross while you're at it. I'd love to be surprised. But with all that said, I definitely have faith that the devs could make the right call here and remaster Dino Dino Jungle instead. On top of everything I just mentioned, one advantage that Jungle has that I don't see being brought up enough is the fact that DK Mountain would mean 3 of Wave 6's retro courses were in Mario Kart Wii. Now back in the days when Waves had 5 retros each, this wouldn't have been a significant issue. 3 of Wave 1's 5 retros were in DS, and 3 of Wave 2's 5 retros were in 7. If you'll notice though, we got exactly 2 representatives in each of Waves 2, 3, 4, and 5. I think that's an especially wise choice for the 2023 waves that only have 4 retros apiece. I know there's Wii bias and all, but I'd like to think that the devs know when it's just too much. So ideally, Wave 6's Wii representation is limited to 2 courses as well, Daisy Circuit and Rainbow Road, in addition to Funky Kong of course. And if that's the case, and I really do believe it could be, then I think Daisy Circuit would actually take Acorn-3, with Dino Dino sitting as the second course of the wave. I find it funny that people act like it's mandatory that the simplest course of a wave be its second, even though Waves 2 and 5 pretty clearly demonstrate that that doesn't have to be the case. You have to keep in mind, course order is very significantly influenced by atmosphere in addition to complexity and difficulty. It's why Jungle appeared as the second course of its cup in Double Dash and 7, and while Daisy Circuit is relatively simple, as I said before, it does have a more endgame presentation than DDJ in my opinion, which is on top of the fact that 6 of the 6 Wii courses already in the past are in 3rd or 4th slots. So yeah, it could go either way as far as I'm concerned. I'm ready for any outcome they throw at us. Now for an easy one. Acorn-4 has always been, and always will be, Piranha Plant Cove. I reckon this will go down as one of the very few post-Wave 4 slots to retain its original placement. I mean, it's a Tour non-city course and a lap changer. How much more obvious of a final slot pick can you get? Not to mention the atmosphere, which is adventurous but definitely subdued, making it a not great option for a penultimate slot, but a perfect way to mark the end of a little journey or the halfway point of a larger one. And since I should not have to explain myself on Spiny-4, our final stop for the explanation is Spiny-2 and 3. This is where I'm making a change from my previous predictions that may be surprising. I now believe that Super Nintendo Bowser Castle 3 will be the penultimate course of the whole pass. Yep, you heard that right. And like Daisy Circuit and November 8th before it, this comes by way of none other than Nocturne. Newton's fourth law strikes again. But remember, I never blindly follow anyone's predictions just because it's their predictions. I always think it through and decide whether I agree, and I would advise that you do the same. I have nothing wrong with you disagreeing with me on any of this. Now, before you get all up in arms about how they've never put a Retro Bowser's Castle before a Retro Rainbow Road before, and BC3 is still a Super Nintendo course, remember its original placement in Wave 5, and Tour Nitros can't be in second slots, let me make something very clear. Remember that I've been on both sides of this fence. I was on the other side for a very long time. You can go back to my other videos or even dig through my Discord message history. Before Wave 5's reveal, I thought it would stay put. Before I settled on Daisy Circuit, I had Bowser Castle 3 set as Acorn-3, and even after settling, I maintained that it was most likely Spiny-2. But the draw of Nocturne is just too powerful, man. I will admit that the fact that it's a Bowser's Castle does factor into this decision somewhat. I mean, after all, when you think about it, they've never had an opportunity to put a Retro BC next to a Retro Rainbow Road before, outside of Mario Kart 7, where that would have been downright stupid. And it's interesting to note that they did put Airship Fortress in that slot, and in Grumble Volcano in Mario Kart 8 is the same story. However, that's far from the main thing that has me convinced, which is actually length. Using 150cc footage of Rome Avanti, Piranha Plant Pipeline, Super Nintendo Bowser Castle 3, and Wii Rainbow Road by Watermelon KK, I found that the amount of time it takes to go around each course twice in Mario Kart Tour is about 95 seconds on average for each route of Rome Avanti, 95 seconds for BC3, 107 seconds for Pipeline, and 172 seconds for Rainbow Road. Remember, that's with tours scaling for 8 players and 2 laps. When these courses are brought to 8, they'll be upscaled for 12 players and be played with 3 laps each. And yes, for your information, that does include Rainbow Road. The course may have been split into 2 sections for Tour, but that's because Tour is a pick-up-and-play mobile game. It's only a bit longer than Maple Treeway or Waluigi Pinball, which are 3 full laps in 8 Deluxe, so I see no reason to think that Rainbow Road won't be as well. Also keep in mind that Tour's 150cc is more comparable to 8's 100cc, so if these numbers sound super daunting to you, don't worry about it too much. Anyway, if we assume that these courses will all be scaled by about the same factor, then Pipeline may be as much as 25 to 30 seconds longer for an entire race than Rome or BC3, which would likely be about average lengths. And if you look back over the rest of 8 Deluxe, you may notice that while it's not uncommon for a cup to end on its longest course, it is uncommon for 2 courses to appear next to each other that are both well above average length. A good parallel to draw here would be Lucky Cat, where Shroom Ridge and Ninja Hideaway, both relatively long courses, are separated by Sky Garden, a slightly below average length course and the second simplest of Wave 1. In fact, based on the 150cc Staff Ghosts, out of the 22 cups in 8 Deluxe, the only ones to start with the shortest and gradually scale up to end on the longest course are Mushroom, Shell, and Leaf. So ultimately, even though it would be the only time 2 tour courses appear next to each other, and even though I'll always maintain that Pipeline would have made for an excellent penultimate course in its own right, I think for gameplay flow purposes it makes the most sense for Pipeline to be Spiny-2 and Bowser Castle 3 to be Spiny-3. Also, I should note that I no longer believe that being an ultimately fairly simple Super Nintendo course stops it from fitting this spot. Because, while it is a little simple, not only did that not stop Merry Mountain in Wave 3 before it, but I also feel its appearance in Mario Kart Tour doesn't do the best job of representing the sheer drama and danger that the course will have when it's ported to 8 Deluxe. I came to this realization while watching footage of this model port. I'm not going to try to pronounce that username because I know I'm going to screw it up, but even though it's definitely significantly overscaled and the visuals are horrid, I would recommend giving it a watch so you can see what I mean. This placement also makes sense in light of the fact that the course was moved out of Wave 5 in the first place. I mean, if the developers thought that 5-7 was a good spot for it, then they didn't have to delay it. Why would they make the conscious decision to move it out of a penultimate slot into a second slot? Remember, just like the 2023 cities, these prefixes would have been determined well before the Tour devs completed the Bowser Castle 3 remake. Maybe the BCP devs, who likely commissioned the remake, hadn't expected the glow-up to be perfect for the final wave. It's all theory at this point, but I think it lines up well. And once again, if you don't agree, that's fine. The amusing thing is, no matter what Spiny looks like exactly, it'll still wind up being the best cup in the game, with 2 of the top 3 best tour courses ever produced, plus Wii Rainbow Road. So yeah, those are my final predictions for the courses included in Wave 6 of the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass DLC for the Mario Kart 8 Deluxe game for the Nintendo Switch system. I don't have any new thoughts on the characters other than that the European trailer's 8 courses plus 4 characters most likely means that there aren't any more. #JFK. And with all that said and done, I would like to ask you, dear viewer, to like if you liked, subscribe if you liked, join my Discord server if you liked, and once again, leave your Wave 6 predictions in the comments for me to record them even if you didn't like. I love you all, and I'm so lucky to have met so many awesome people over this speculation journey. In case this is the last BCP speculation video I make, I put my all into making it as enjoyable and satisfying as possible, so if you're listening to this now, then I suppose I accomplished my goal. Keep an eye out for the Wave 6 trailer anticipation videos I'm recording every Thursday, so you're guaranteed to get my reaction whenever the trailer decides to drop. And if Wave 6 is already behind us when you're watching, then I hope you enjoyed this relic of the past. Feel free to make fun of anything I got horribly wrong. Thank you ever so much for listening to me ramble, have a wonderful day, and happy speculating.